Hello everyone and welcome to the Guidebook. So I just want to start up with a little update with you for An Idiot's Guide to Entertainment. The podcast has been going really, really well. I've been back at it for a couple of weeks now, coming at you with all the latest movie reviews that I can get to you. And with the Guidebook, this is going to be a new segment for both the podcast and the YouTube channel, where I can just sit down and have a chat with you about the latest news hitting the entertainment industry. And it will be just a different segment. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we're working on here at An Idiot's Guide to Entertainment, a lot of other projects that we're spitballing, a few other creators that I'm trying to get on board to work with me, a few of my friends and buddies. That'll be fantastic. And the Guidebook is just one of these different elements that I will hopefully be bringing to you on a more regular basis. So what's the news this week? We start off, obviously, with the very sad news of another celebrity passing. Diana Rigg passed away yesterday. Obviously, she was an actress well known for stuff like being a Bond girl in the James Bond franchise, as well as starring in Doctor Who, and most recently, and probably most well known, as a cast member on Game of Thrones. Diana Rigg was such a fantastic, powerful presence and a wonderful actress. Diana will be sorely missed. She passed away at her home, surrounded by her family, and it is another sad, sad loss in 2020. And the world's a little less brighter without Diana in it. Coming up next, Warner Brothers has now postponed the release of Wonder Woman 1984 again. This is obviously a big hit for cinemas around the world. We have had the beginning of a return to some form of normality in the cinema and movie-going industry with the release of stuff like Tenet and finally the New Mutants in recent weeks. But unfortunately, we've hit another roadblock with increasing rates of coronavirus occurring around the world. And I'll just read you a little quote from Variety. Patty is an exceptional filmmaker with Wonder Woman 1984. She's delivered an incredibly dynamic film that moviegoers of all ages around the world will absolutely love. We're very proud of this film and look forward to bringing it to audiences for the holidays. That was Toby Emmerich, Warner Brothers Motion Picture chairman. It has moved. It was supposed to be coming out on October 2nd and will now hopefully touch down in theatres on Christmas Day 2020. Now, obviously, this is a big disappointment, and partially, I believe, will be linked towards the financial takings from Tenet so far. Obviously, Tenet and Wonder Woman 1984 are both being released by Warner Brothers. Tenet opened recently in the US to a really, really small, comparatively small taking of $20.2 million across the US in its opening weekend. Now, for a Christopher Nolan movie, that's incredibly, incredibly low. With the next closest open to 20 million being Pixar's Onward back in the beginning of the pandemic. It's a remarkably low opener for not only a Christopher Nolan movie, but obviously a movie in the US, period. And it's not been a complete negative picture for Tenet's box office openings. In China, it opened with an estimated 30 million. On the Chinese mainland, and now that holds the record for Tenet's biggest opening in it holds the record for the biggest opening of a Christopher Nolan movie in mainland China ever, as well as the title for the biggest IMAX opening in China in 2020. So what this obviously means is Tenet obviously had the very, very unenviable task of being the first one out the gate. This was probably the first major release for any studio out the gate after the coronavirus pandemic and the coronavirus regulations started to be moved back in some countries around the world. And it had the unenviable task of being the first one out of the gate. The first movie out of the gate was never going to perform well in terms of box office takings. And this seems to be a reactionary move by Warner Brothers to knock Wonder Woman 1984 back to the Christmas period. Not only that, but the release schedule for around Christmas is loosening somewhat, with obviously stuff like we've got Black Widow coming out around that period, but some of the bigger releases have begun to shift into 2021 as other studios react to the coronavirus pandemic. However, for me, this seems to be a bit of a stall. At the moment, obviously, here in the UK, we've had a certain escalation of coronavirus regulations again. Obviously, we can't meet in groups any more of 6 outside. And here in Wales, finally, masks are becoming mandatory in all shops and indoor spaces. And that picture is pretty much being repeated all across the world. It seems as we move into the winter, the rates of coronavirus are increasing, and perhaps this is almost a look forward into the future to make sure that they are protecting their assets as best they can. If some of those regulations surrounding movie theatres especially start to be drawn back in, Warner Brothers doesn't want another financial failure, especially one that they've pumped so much money into as Wonder Woman 1984. This is obviously a big, sad moment for people in the cinema industry. They've been looking and they've been hoping that these movie studios don't push these release schedules back any further than they already have had to. Obviously, there are some big arguments that have gone on during the pandemic between studios like Universal and Odeon Cinemas and AMC in the US. But we are still basically at a stalemate, largely. There are not many new movies reaching cinemas, especially now that Wonder Woman has been pushed back. I was looking at the schedule for the reviews that I'll be putting out on An Idiot's Guide to Entertainment, and at the moment, in terms of in-cinema stuff, after we finished with New Mutants and Tenet, it's looking very, very thin on the ground for what we get until it was Wonder Woman. Now it's moved back to God only knows where. So for me, this podcast and YouTube channel, that's obviously disappointing. It's disappointing, obviously, for people who work in the cinema industry, and ultimately it's still disappointing for Warner Brothers. But we're all taking the precautionary measures that we need to in order to stay safe in this time of coronavirus and this mental world that we're living in here in 2020. So that's all the latest news and information from the world of entertainment. Another movie yet again delayed. How do you feel about Wonder Woman 1984 being moved back to Christmas Day? What do you think about it? Let me know. Let's have a conversation about it. And as always, this has been The Guidebook, and I have been Matt Walker for An Idiot's Guide to Entertainment. Goodbye!